The first thing Geralt noticed upon entering the city was the silence. A silence so deep it pressed against his ears like water, leaving no room for the usual chaos of a northern town. Even the wind seemed reluctant to move, curling through narrow alleys and abandoned streets with a subtle scent of decay. It wasn't the odor of rot or mold he had encountered countless times in his travels. No, this was sharper, more sinister, the faintly metallic tang of blood, laced with something darker, something alive. Children had been disappearing for weeks. The townsfolk whispered of a clown that came in the night, a creature feeding on flesh flavored by fear. Skeptical but cautious, Geralt kept his silver and steel swords within easy reach. He had faced monsters that feasted on bone and muscle before, but few that savored terror itself. Every tale he had ever heard told of things that thrived on mortal panic, but this was different. He stepped onto the cobblestones, his boots echoing with measured rhythm. The alleyways were narrow, each doorway a shadowed mouth waiting to swallow the unwary. He paused at the first scene of disappearance. A small home, door hanging ajar, children's toys strewn across the threshold. He knelt, examining the ground. Small footprints, smeared with something dark, led toward the open sewer grate at the far end of the alley. He sniffed the air and flared his nostrils. Yes, the scent of fear-infused blood was strong here, practically humming with predatory energy. Geralt crouched, placing a hand on the ground. Signs of struggle were faint but deliberate. Overturned chairs, scuff marks, shards of broken wood. But no human hand had taken these traces. This was a predator's work. He drew the faintest line between cause and effect, tracing the trajectory of the kidnapper, and then looked up. The town felt wrong, not in the sense of decay or neglect, though there was plenty of that, but in the sense of a trap waiting to be sprung. Every alley, every shadowed doorway seemed like a calculated piece in a larger puzzle. The pattern was there, subtle but undeniable. The clown, whoever or whatever it was hunting not at random. Its prey were children, yes, but the fear it sought, that was the delicacy. He poured a drop of his potion onto the cobblestone, a mixture of white honey and herbs, intended to heighten perception and resist psychic influence. The trail shimmered slightly, a map in miniature of residual magic. His fingers traced the edges of the shimmer, and he smiled faintly. A monster that preyed on fear had left a trail for someone trained to read such things. The first clue came from the smell, not just blood, though there was plenty, but something richer layered beneath it. He sniffed again, a metallic sweetness mixed with the faint tang of iron and something he could only describe as anticipation. The scent pulsed, almost alive. He narrowed his eyes. The creature was near. By midday, he had examined 3 more scenes of disappearance, each following a similar pattern: signs of struggle, residual magic, and that same unmistakable scent. Every location led back to the sewers, a labyrinth beneath the city. Geralt drew a quick map on parchment, noting entry points, ventilation shafts, and water flow. The monster moved with purpose, but even the most careful predator left tracks. At the edge of a canalized tunnel, he paused. The smell was strongest here, overwhelming. It hit his nostrils like a hammer, coppery, sweet, with a faint undertone of decay. Fear, yes, but also hunger. The creature had been feeding recently, and its hunger was insatiable. He readied his swords, steel for physical form, silver for magic. Whatever it was, he would need both. A soft giggle echoed from the darkness below. Not a child's, not entirely human. It bounced along the walls, playful and cruel. He tensed, dropping into a low crouch. This was no ordinary hunt. This was a game of mind and reflex. "Come on," a voice whispered from the shadows, high-pitched, taunting. "I'm hungry, so hungry for a little bite, a little scream." Geralt's eyes narrowed. The creature had to be feeding. Its form might be mutable, its power drawn from fear, but it had a pattern. The fear gave it strength, and the flesh sealed the flavor. The two together made it nearly unstoppable if allowed to linger. But this was why he was here, to track, to analyze, to contain. He drew his steel sword first, slicing the air before him. then silver, ready for whatever illusions or manifestations the creature might conjure. He descended carefully into the sewers, every sense alert. The tunnel was narrow, low-ceilinged, twisting. Shadows danced where torches flickered, but he knew better to trust light. This creature could manipulate perception itself, turning nightmares into reality. Every corner could hide a child or a predator feeding on fear. Then, movement, quick, darting, something pale, thin, its limbs stretching unnaturally as it vanished into the darkness. A shadow? A trick of light? Geralt followed, letting the faint magical residue guide him. He came to a small chamber, old and damp, walls slick with moisture and streaked with crimson. The smell was overwhelming here. Blood, iron, fear. It was thick in the air, almost tangible, and in the center a shape emerged, tall, thin, dressed in a garish costume, white face, painted red smile, eyes glimmered with hunger. "You came," it hissed. "Finally someone to play, someone to taste fear with." Geralt stepped forward. His voice was steady, measured. "I'm not here to play. You stop or I stop you." The creature laughed, a high, cruel sound that ricocheted off the walls. "Stop? You think you can stop me? I need it. The fear, the flesh, the perfect flavor, and tonight, the children."
Geralt didn't flinch. He tightened his grip on his swords. This wasn't about courage. It was about method, about reading patterns and exploiting weaknesses. The creature fed on panic, on chaos. Remove the chaos, limit its access to prey, and it became vulnerable. He began his tactical approach. Slow, deliberate, every step calculated. Signs at hand, potions active. Every breath measured, every shadow analyzed. The creature darted forward, testing him, shaping illusions of screaming children, walls twisting impossibly, the air thick with the coppery smell of blood. Geralt countered with Ard, sweeping a portion of the illusions away. The creature hissed and laughed. He followed with Igni, scorching the wet stone, burning away false pathways. He noticed a pattern. When the creature manifests illusions, it leaves physical traces behind. Residual magic, faint but detectable. He traced these, each step bringing him closer to the real form hidden in the darkness. Then a sudden sound, a child's cry, real this time, echoing from deeper in the tunnels. Hunger flared in the creature's posture, its movements jerky with anticipation. Geralt knew this was the opening he needed. A predator that feeds on fear and flesh is reckless when hungry. He baited it, letting the creature advance, then used a combination of steel and silver strikes to force it back. The first confrontation ended not with a kill, but a retreat. The creature vanished into a side tunnel, leaving behind the lingering scent of blood and fear. Geralt took note of its patterns, the way it reacted to fear, to bait, to physical force. The hunt was just beginning, and he knew one thing for certain. This creature was clever, cunning, and insatiable, and every night it went unfed, the city's children were at risk. Outside, the city remained oblivious, sleeping under a fragile calm. But beneath the streets, a predator roamed, and a witcher, patient and methodical, was already following its trail. The city slept uneasily, unaware of the predator lurking beneath its streets. Geralt moved silently along the edge of the sewer entrance, senses attuned to every nuance. The faint metallic tang of blood lingered in the air, stronger here than anywhere else, punctuated with a sour, coppery sweetness that set his teeth on edge. The creature had fed recently, it would be hungry again, and hunger made it reckless. Geralt crouched and examined the ground. Tiny footprints smeared with traces of blood led down the tunnel in a sinuous line. The trail was faint but precise. Whoever or whatever had left it had been careful, but not careful enough to leave residual magic. He could sense it with his enhanced perception, each faint shimmer mapping the creature's path. He reached for his satchel and pulled out a vial of white honey. A drop on the ground revealed the faint magical distortions, glowing softly for a heartbeat before fading. The creature's energy was chaotic, almost ecstatic, each instance of feeding leaving a mark of raw, psychic delight. The smell of flesh seasoned with terror was stronger here. Geralt clenched his jaw. This was no ordinary monster. Fear was not incidental. It was the seasoning, the key to the creature's sustenance. As he descended into the first stretch of tunnels, he methodically checked every alcove, every junction. The walls were slick with moisture, streaked with rust and something darker, old blood, remnants of previous meals. A faint giggle echoed through the damp stone, high-pitched and cruel, and Geralt tensed but made no sudden move. He knew better than to let himself react emotionally. Every predator that feeds on terror relied on overreaction, on panic. A shadow flickered in the corner of his vision. A doll, grotesquely painted, rolled across the wet floor. He raised a brow, silently noting the predator's methods. It fed not only of flesh but of the psyche. Children were drawn in by curiosity, then terror. The creature would test their senses, manipulating the familiar into something monstrous, amplifying their screams before delivering the kill. He moved further into the network of tunnels, following the shimmer of residual magic. Here and there, fragments of clothing and small twisted toys marked the scenes of previous attacks. Blood had been smeared along the walls, creating an invisible map only someone with his senses could read. He traced the path carefully, marking points on his parchment, choke points, potential hiding spots, sources of magical residue. By mid-afternoon, he had mapped a small sector of the sewer labyrinth. Patterns emerged. The creature moved predictably, choosing routes that allowed for ambushes and escape. Every manifestation it left in the physical world carried a residue, the scent of fear, the tang of blood, the weight of panic. These signs were subtle, but Geralt had learned to read monsters in ways the average person never could. He paused near a corner where the scent was strongest. The air was thick with coppery iron, a sweetness of freshly spilled blood mingled with something sharper, more alive. He set a small line of iron dust along the wall, mixing it with purified water to enhance the magical detection. Tiny tendrils of energy flared, tracing the path of the creature's last movements. "Hungry," a voice whispered from the shadows, a high-pitched, cruel giggle accompanying it. "So hungry for the taste, the fear, the scream."
He paused at a fork in the tunnel. One path smelled faintly of old sewage, the other reeked of fresh blood mixed with fear. His instincts, honed by decades of tracking monsters, directed him toward the latter. He crouched, drawing both swords, steel at his side, silver ready for manifestations. The creature had a pattern. It had to feed to maintain its strength. Its hunger would drive it, eventually forcing mistakes. The first clue appeared as a whisper, a laugh so high-pitched it made the hairs on his neck stand. "So hungry, so very delicious." It came from the darkness ahead, then echoed around him as if bouncing from every wall. Geralt ignored the taunt, following the trail of physical and magical residue. Toys, twisted and smeared with blood, littered the floor. Tiny footprints, distorted and stretching unnaturally, indicated where the predator had crouched, ready to strike. He set small wards along the walls, lines of silver dust mixed with enchanted water. These would reveal the creature if it tried to bypass him undetected. He used Igni in brief, controlled bursts, scorching the edges of the corridor to force shadows back into corners. Then Ard, gentle but precise, to test walls and ceilings, revealing hidden recesses. Every action was methodical, calculated, anticipating the creature's movements. A faint rustle from above made him pause. He caught a glimpse of something pale, grotesque, climbing the wall with unnatural agility. Its eyes glimmered with hunger. The predator had sensed him, its prey, and now it hungered for the fight. It darted down, manifesting fully, the painted white face, the red grin, the limbs long and twisted. Hunger and fear radiated from it in waves, the coppery scent of blood and panic filling the chamber. You think you can stop me?" it hissed, circling him. Its voice was cruel, high, almost musical. "The fear,
the taste, the screams. I am the feast, and you are next."
Geralt stepped forward, calm, controlled, every motion precise. "You feed on fear," he said, his voice low and steady, "but I do not fear." The creature hissed, testing him, lunging forward with impossible speed. Geralt responded with a combination of steel and silver, striking at its physical projections while guarding against the illusions. Each time it lunged, it left traces, blood, residual magic, the psychic echo of terror. He studied these carefully, predicting where the next attack would come from. The fight became a deadly dance. Geralt baited the predator, allowing it to charge, then countering with controlled bursts of igni and precise strikes. The creature screamed, a high, cruel sound, feeding on the terror that it created in the air. Yet Geralt's resolve was unshakable. The predator's power was tied to fear, and he had none to offer. He began to drive it toward a narrow chamber he had prepared. Silver dust glimmered faintly along the floor, creating a barrier that limited its movement. Hidden lines of fire would erupt if it tried to leap or escape. Traps lay in wait, weighted nets, simple but effective, designed to hold the creature long enough for strikes. The smell of blood and fear grew more intense, confirming the presence of victims, perhaps alive or recently killed. The predator's hunger made it reckless. As it entered the chamber, the full weight of its bloodlust became apparent. Its eyes glimmered with anticipation, body twitching unnaturally, voice hissing with glee. "I am starving. The meat, the fear, it is mine." Geralt acted. Ard swept through, knocking the creature off balance. Igni scorched the corners of the chamber, cutting off escape routes. The creature shrieked, twisting and contorting, leaving faint trails of magical residue wherever it moved. Geralt followed, steel slicing through appendages, silver at the ready for manifestations that shimmered into form. The predator's hunger made it reckless, striking blindly at illusions it created, lunging into traps that tightened around it. Each maneuver by Geralt was precise, a step here, a strike there, a ward activated to block retreat. Slowly, inexorably, the creature was forced back, confined, unable to manifest fully. Its voice changed, a mixture of anger and panic. "No, you cannot! The taste, the fear, I am..." Geralt stepped closer, eyes calculating, analyzing. The predator was bound by its reliance on fear. Deprive it of prey, limit its ability to terrorize, and it became vulnerable. With a well-timed Ard, he slammed the creature into a corner, disrupting its balance. A precise strike of silver cut through its physical form, not to destroy the entity itself, but to disrupt its manifestation in the physical world. The creature hissed, writhing, shrieking with frustration and hunger. The chamber fell silent. Only the faint smell of blood lingered, and a low, eerie giggle that drifted down the tunnels like smoke. The predator had retreated, unable to sustain its form without access to fresh fear and flesh. Geralt knelt, checking the faint traces left behind, ensuring that wards and traps would prevent a quick return. The children were safe, for now. He stood, cleaning his blades, senses still alert. The hunt was over for the night, but the predator remained, lurking in the shadows, its hunger undiminished. It would feed again, and he would have to be ready. But tonight, method, skill, and preparation had prevailed over instinct and hunger. Outside, the city was quiet, unaware of the danger that had passed so close to its streets. The air smelled faintly of iron and smoke. Geralt glanced upward through a grate to the stars above, feeling the familiar weight of responsibility. A predator that fed on fear and flesh had been cornered, its power curtailed but not ended. The hunt would continue. Hunger would return, but so would patience, preparation, and the cold precision of a witcher who knew that monsters, no matter how cunning or bloodthirsty, could be tracked, trapped, and controlled. And beneath the city, in the shadows of the tunnels, a faint, cruel laugh echoed once more. The city awoke to a fragile calm. Children emerged from hidden corners, pale and trembling, but alive. Parents wept, relief mixing with lingering fear, while the streets buzzed quietly with whispered stories of the monster beneath the ground. But no one knew exactly what had stalked them, only that the terror had passed, for now. Geralt walked along the quiet streets at dawn, his boots echoing on cobblestones slick with early frost. His swords rested across his back, heavy but familiar. He had secured the tunnels, set wards and marked traps, enough to delay the predator, to give the city time to breathe. But he knew the truth. The creature was still alive, hunger never ended, fear never truly faded. Somewhere in the darkness of the labyrinth beneath the city, a faint, cruel giggle lingered, carried by air that smelled faintly of iron and terror. The predator would feed again, it would return, and when it did, it would be hungrier, more desperate, more dangerous. Geralt did not flinch, he did not falter. He had done what he came to do, protect the innocent, analyze the predator, and survive the hunt. His profession demanded patience, precision, and cold calculation. Fear, panic, or emotion could not guide him, only method, skill, and preparation. He paused at the edge of the city, looking toward the horizon where the first light of day painted the sky in pale gold. The world was temporarily safe. The predator had been forced into retreat, but the war between the hunter and the creature of hunger and fear was far from over. A faint sound reached him, almost playful, almost a whisper, a giggle high-pitched, echoing through the alleys. Geralt tightened his grip on the hilt of his silver sword. The predator remained, waiting, hungering. And the Witcher would wait too. In the quiet, in the shadows, a war of patience began anew. Because some monsters never die, they only wait.